distribution is going to be, how do you determine what that amount is once you hit the age at which you qualify for them?
Talk to a professional, I think, is my answer, because it is pretty complicated. But the IRS publishes this giant table about uniform life expectancies, and then you have to, compare your age to the table, compare it to your year-end balance, and come up with that dollar amount. And that dollar amount is the one that has to be withdrawn by the year end of that year.
The guide is titled Frequently Asked Questions About RMDs, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. Again, the guide is titled Frequently Asked Questions About RMDs, and that phone number to request it is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
We are the Debt Destroyer Network. Any debt you have, credit card, tax, student loan debt, call now for free information that helps you destroy your debt. It's great advice. Plus, when you make this free call now, we have Debt Destroyer experts ready to help. They can show you how to destroy your debt and get your life back on track. Debt problems don't have to be overwhelming. You can live stress-free and debt-free. Credit cards, medical bills, IRS tax problems, even student loan debt. Learn about free programs offered by the credit card companies, hospitals, and even the government that can help slash your debt. Call the Debt Destroyer now for free information. Call now. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. Again, that's 800-430-8804.
This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who have served this country. Join us on Saturday, November 9th for the 9th Annual Disabled American Veterans 5K Boston. It's a run and walk to support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. Register now at dav5k.boston.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti.
And a very happy Fed Day to all those who celebrate. It is Chuck, Mark, and Tucker with you, and at 2 p.m. Eastern Time today, the one and only Federal Reserve will announce its latest interest rate decision and changes to monetary policy. The expectation today, kind of all over the place, quite honestly. Normally heading into a Fed meeting, by the morning of said Fed meeting, the CME FedWatch tool, the Fed Funds Futures pricing, is usually somewhere in the vicinity of 95 to 99% certain of what the Fed is going to do at a minimum. Today, we've got a little bit of drama here. So this episode of the Fed is brought to you by the same people who produced The Bachelor and Bachelorette, and it's the most dramatic Fed meeting in history, Mark. Am I wrong or right? It's not actually the most dramatic in history, but it's...
I'm not that old, Chuck. I don't know about every single one.
You don't have a mental Rolodex that you go through in terms of... In terms of
uncertainty as to what they're going to do. You remember 2008 and 9, where there were interim rate cuts, interim measures. That whole period was one of exhaustingly elevated uncertainty. This went on for several months. So as a period, that will probably, I hope, not be matched in our lifetimes. As far as uncertainty about the balance between inflation and unemployment that the Fed is trying to strike, and that is at the core of this. We shouldn't lose sight of that. Those two things in the short term are in perfect tension, and the Fed is walking a knife's edge here. As far as the uncertainty about where the risks lie right now, it's as high as it gets in a normal, i.e. non-2008, which we're all still shell-shocked from, at least I am, business cycle, Chuck. So, yeah, I think you're describing it correctly.
This is actually a really interesting one. We've poo-pooed a number of the other Fed meetings this year being like, hey, this doesn't really matter. Like, they're not going to do anything. Nothing's happening, blah, blah, blah. This one, there's actually a little bit of intrigue, and not just because of what happens today, but, hey, what does the Fed think? There are two numbers, in my opinion, that matter for markets more than even what the Fed does today. What does the Fed project unemployment to be at the end of this year and next year? And what does the Fed project the Fed funds rate to be at the conclusion of this year and next year? Because that tells you two things, in my opinion. It tells you how high is the Fed willing to let unemployment go, and based on Powell's comments at Jackson Hole, where he said, in no uncertain terms, I don't want unemployment moving any higher than where we are, you would expect that the unemployment rate that they state at the end of 2024 would be 4.2, maybe 4.3, because otherwise they're basically saying their policy doesn't work. Like, that's the implication. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying that's the implication that gets read. And as far as, hey, what are they going to do about it? This is where, you do have the potential for a little bit of a shakeup in terms of how markets are pricing things, because we don't know. Even let's say the Fed does go today. There are 3 remaining meetings, including today, in 2024. Is it 50, 25, 25 for the rate cuts? Is it 50, 25, 0? Is it 50, 50, 50? Is it 50, 75, 75? I mean, there's a wide range of potential outcomes here, and all of it stems from something that you touched on at the outset, which is, if I'm being completely honest, I don't have any read on where this economy is going right now. It is all over the place, and that is different from a month and a half ago, where in early August, the data was pretty consistently pointing down, regardless of what you were looking at. Today you look at it and you're like, okay, so job growth is slowing. We know that. Job openings are slowing. The labor market as a whole seems to be slowing. That's fairly conclusive. But retail sales have beaten expectations the last 2 months. And so we're seeing a little bit of a growth impulse there. We just got this morning building permits and housing starts data, which jumped significantly month over month as interest rates fell. The counter to that, even within that own data, is housing completions went up dramatically, and so the number of units under construction, which is what actually matters for how many construction workers are needed, continues to fall at a pretty rapid clip. So even within housing, it's kind of like, well, I don't really know what's going on here at the moment. You take a look at the industrial production numbers that we got yesterday. I think the technical term is knock the cover off the ball. They were great. But then you look at ISM manufacturing and all these surveys about how manufacturing is doing, and it's kind of like, well, things are really bad here. There's nothing conclusive pointing in either direction right now. And what I will say is, if that continues, isn't that exactly what the soft landing looks like, where you don't know exactly where you're going, but you just kind of toddle around this area?
You never know exactly where you're going. There are too many forces acting on the economy, some in headwind fashion, others in tailwind fashion, i.e. some are supportive of growth, others tend to retard it. You don't know. The best guess right now, Chuck, as you point out, I think is summarized by the Atlanta Fed's GDP statistics, which takes into account yesterday's industrial production and capacity utilization, both of which look just fine, which take into account other metrics like retail sales, which we got yesterday, and it can be bewildering. I understand we throw a lot of data points out at you without, because we're getting them too. It's real time. We're just reacting. There's very little context. Should I pay attention to this? Shouldn't I? How much weight should I assign it? I find it perplexing personally without retreating to my little economic models that we're all trained to use. Thankfully, the Atlanta Fed does this for us in real time. They call it GDP Now. It is not a forecast. It is a nowcast, which means it is a snapshot of what the economy is likely doing right now, not what it will do over the remainder of the quarter.
Sure.
And according to that measure, which aggregates and weights appropriately all this other stuff that we're throwing at you, the economy is growing at an above speed limit or trend, I'll use those terms interchangeably, rate of about 2.5% after inflation annualized. It is not obvious to me, just using that, again, aggregation that the Atlanta Fed produces, that the Fed needs to implement emergency support to economic demand right now. If it does that, it runs the risk of inflation resurging, maybe not to 5 or 6%. That would probably require a special factor hitting the economy from outside, like an oil price or a supply shock. But because there may still be too much demand in the pipeline, causing the economy to run above its natural, if you like, its normal rate, its speed limit, less formally. We just don't know.
What about when we look at some of these other things that, again, the thing with economics that I always come back to is none of the metrics or indicators that we use are reliable 100% of the time. It's not physics is something that I like to say quite often. There are no hard and fast rules. There are rules that work sometimes, then they break, then they work again, then they break again. Nothing works all the time. One example of this that economists have been looking at for the last 20 years now, since they had the data available to them, is called the beverage curve, or the beverage curve. It's been pronounced both ways. I think beverage is the right one. That's the one that you tell me to use.
It sounds more fun.
Which one? Beverage or beverage?
I like beverage.
I don't know. A couple adult beverages are, a nice afternoon as well, but it's neither here nor there. In any case, this looks at the ratio of, or not the ratio, it looks at the plot of job openings to unemployment, the unemployment rate.
Jobs without workers to workers without jobs.
Yes. And generally the trend is, hey, as job openings come down, the unemployment rate goes up. And what do we have right now is job openings are coming down, and the unemployment rate has started to move up in line with that in a way that is making this curve work in a way that it didn't for the last couple of years. It was kind of irrelevant for a couple of years. Again, it didn't work then. Well, you look at that and you say, okay, I really want to get ahead of that because I don't want to head further up that curve to where unemployment starts to move up quickly towards 5.5%, 6%, because now I'm costing 3 to 4 million jobs. And why am I costing those jobs if inflation is running 2.5 to 3%? It's not running 9% anymore. Why do I want to cost 3 to 4 million jobs to try to get inflation down an extra 0.5%? That's
we lucked out there because the curve was. This is not technical. It's going to sound like I'm trying to be technical, but I'm not. When a curve is flat, any curve, you got to move a lot on the horizontal for a little bit of movement on the vertical. You can picture this. It is not technical. When the curve is more vertical, you get a big drop in the vertical for very little movement on the horizontal. So it's like saying vacancies can fall a lot without unemployment going up, and that's exactly what's happened. That curve went from a pretty shallow slope to a very steep slope. Really good trade-off. Everybody was really worried that the beverage curve was going to stay pretty flat, and as it turned out, it steepened a lot. Did we luck out? Is it due to Fed deafness? Artfully handling policy? I don't really know.
No idea. No, and this is the it's both the problem and the beauty of economics. It's a problem when people try to proclaim that, hey, you have to do this because this is how it works.
Who does that, though? Real economists don't do that. Journalists do that, forgive me. But talking heads do that. Investment managers on CNBC with MBAs from great schools, but they're not economists do that.
Totally.
Real economists are the most humble people you'd ever want to meet.
But this is the problem, is we don't hear from real economists. We hear from people on CNBC that's like, oh, like this happens and then this happens and this is why you have to do this. And it's not always that easy.
Yeah, true.
It's...
Yeah.
You don't ever hear from the person that's written the 400-page paper on, I don't know, how the number of turtles impacts the unemployment rate on a Tuesday. Because someone studied that. They probably haven't, actually, because I don't know what you would do. But
I hope they didn't get a grant for that. But
so it's a problem when we try to reduce it to being so simple. But look, the beauty of economics is no one really knows how all of it works, quite honestly. We have some general principles that work most of the time, but not always. And you kind of have to feel your way through it. And there's some judgment calls that you do have to make in terms of what's actually happening, which, by the way, we also don't really know because all of the data that we get, it's from surveys and studies. We don't know what's actually going on at any point in time either. So let's take a quick break here. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about two things. I want to talk, A, about how this potentially influences what other central banks might do, and B, I want to talk a little bit about how it potentially impacts individuals and their money right after this.
There's only one show that follows Wall Street's continued volatility. Keep it here all morning long on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
If you're approaching or have recently reached the age of 73, required minimum distributions should be a key consideration as you evaluate your retirement strategy. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. There are several factors to think about when it comes to RMDs, including the types of accounts that require RMDs, when to take your withdrawals, how your RMD is calculated, and the penalty for missing all or part of an RMD. That's what our new guide this month is all about. It's called Frequently Asked Questions About Required Minimum Distributions, and you can get your copy today by calling 800-393-4001. RMDs are a key part of your retirement strategy, so don't delay. Get your guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That number one more time, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hughes. This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who've served our country and join WBZ for the annual DAV 5K, a run or walk to support disabled vets here in Massachusetts with housing, transportation, and other critical support. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Let's thank all who have sacrificed for our freedom and help our heroes on their road to recovery. Visit DAV5K.Boston to register or donate today.
The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Trusts are essential documents that can help protect your assets from the nursing home. Call Cushing and Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their free guide called Demystifying the Top 7 Estate Planning Trusts. Let them help determine which is right for you. That's 866-848-5699 or request the guide online by visiting their website at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Summer is coming to an end, so it's time to take out your planner and book a spectacular vacation in the U.S. Virgin Islands, America's Caribbean paradise. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are three of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity is at an all-time high. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. If you act fast, you can still celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy the St. Croix Crucian Festival from December 26th through January 4th. Enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. Fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands on your trip to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com.
We are the Debt Destroyer Network. Any debt you have, credit card, tax, student loan debt, call now for free information that helps you destroy your debt. It's great advice. Plus, when you make this free call now, we have debt destroyer experts ready to help. They can show you how to destroy your debt and get your life back on track. Debt problems don't have to be overwhelming. You can live stress-free and debt-free. Credit cards, medical bills, IRS tax problems, even student loan debt. Learn about free programs offered by the credit card companies, hospitals, and even the government that can help slash your debt. Call the Debt Destroyer now for free information. Call now. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. Again, that's 800-430-8804.
Get up-to-the-minute market updates with Wall Street Watch, weekdays at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Summer is just about over, so now's the time to start looking at a fabulous holiday vacation, and there's no better place than the U.S. Virgin Islands. Enjoy perfect weather, world-class dining, incredible beaches, and a vibrant nightlife. No passports needed. There's no money to exchange. Take your next vacation in America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visit USVI to book your Go to visitusvi.com to book your trip. That's visit usvi.com.
A lot of focus on the Fed, and rightly so, being the fact, that it is the central bank for the largest economy on the planet. It matters, and also for the one that is, home to the currency that is used for the most trade on the planet by an enormous margin. So we talk about the Fed an awful lot, but remember, there are a whole bunch of countries, not every country, but many countries have their own central banks, usually the ones with their own currencies, and in doing that, they have their own monetary policy that they can then conduct in order to manage their currency and its value, and generally it's value relative to the dollar, because most of the other countries that do have their own currencies, as I noted, do a lot of their trade in dollars just because that's the standard unit of trade throughout the world. And so one of the major concerns for other central banks is the relative value of their currency, the dollar, and the exchange rates and how those fluctuate over time. So there's a piece here from the Wall Street Journal, and it's talking about how, hey, you've seen some other interest rates that have, begun to move down as central banks have embarked on cutting cycles, but a whole bunch of other ones have been waiting for the Fed to move first, and you might start to get more cutting cycles beginning as the Fed officially kicks off its cycle here today.
They have to. Most countries, as you point out, many are concerned not just with inflation, or even primarily, as weird as that sounds, most countries' central banks, which manage the money supply like the Fed does here, they're concerned with the exchange rate.
Yes.
The Fed used to be primarily concerned with the exchange rate. That was the channel through which what the Fed does impacts the real economy. Real economy is what we all do every day. The financial economy, I'm making a bit of an artificial distinction here, are stock prices, interest rates, and all these paper, if you like, things that we refer to. So that's an important distinction. The Fed uses the financial economy to influence the real economy. It also influences the exchange rate. We to the Fed does not care what the dollar does vis-a-vis foreign currencies. It is a secondary or tertiary or whatever the, right on down the line concern there. Other countries do have to act, though, because they have assets denominated in dollars. It could if their currency declines relative to the dollar, is when the Fed is raising rates. It could impose hardship on their citizens. So in a sense, our Fed's job, our central bank's job, is easier than that of certainly smaller countries. They have to follow our lead, not vice versa, though it's nice to coordinate, as we've been doing with other developed country central banks really since 2008.
Now, a couple other things just of note. One that's mentioned in this piece, which is you do have some countries that are moving in the other direction on rates. And one that is fascinating to watch here is Brazil, which may actually be raising interest rates shortly because the Brazilian economy is absolutely on fire right now. And you've seen inflation rebounding there. Growth has been, good, but a lot of it's being eaten up by inflation there. And so you've got Brazil saying, no, we might need to move in the other direction. We've talked for the last couple of years about the technical term is dumpster fire that the Turkish economy has become, and how they've been having to move rates all over the place in order to try to manage inflation. But the one that I'm particularly interested in, just because, again, when we talk about what can influence where the world economy goes, and even, to a certain extent, influence what the Fed might need to do in the future, is China. And I'm not looking at China's central bank so much, but if you think about this from the perspective of the Chinese economy, we've talked about it for the last couple of years, has just been in an awful spot because what has been the engine for growth for the Chinese economy has been real estate investment and foreign money coming in order to, build factories and things like that in China for export. Both of those have kind of dried up either voluntarily or involuntarily. And China has pretty much refused to do any kind of meaningful stimulus for its households.
They've tried pretty half-hearted, though, it seems, by our standards anyway.
I don't think they've tried to do anything, really. I think they've basically been like, no, we're not going to do this. And part of me looks at it and says, okay, like that makes sense in one respect, in that China doesn't want its, economy to... They're not trying to complete that shift over to a consumer economy. It kind of feels that way. But the other thing that you kind of wonder about is, look, if the Fed is, trying to slow the U.S. economy, and the U.S. economy is a huge driver of Chinese economic activity, well, if you're the Chinese government, don't you also kind of wait for any, meaningful stimulus until the Fed starts cutting?
You have to.
So
because they're reacting to our...
Maybe you end up with some kind of Chinese stimulus that comes after the Fed starts cutting as well on the fiscal side. So there's a lot in play here, and really interesting times ahead over the next 6 to 9 months. Quick break here. Wall Street Watch and Ask Todd are next.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Discover the fish and farm market at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who have served this country. Join us on Saturday, November 9th for the 9th Annual Disabled American Veterans 5K Boston. It's a run and walk to support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Together, let's honor all who have sacrificed for our freedom. Register or donate now at dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit goredforwomen.org today to learn more.
Saving money in an IRA or a 401k can provide tax advantages and are excellent ways to help make sure you're financially prepared for retirement. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're nearing retirement, you need to be aware of the federal regulations regarding required minimum distributions. Once you reach a certain age, you must begin withdrawing money from these accounts. RMDs can influence which accounts to withdraw from first and how much you'll owe in taxes during retirement. If you need information regarding the rules related to RMDs, call us at 800-393-4001 and ask for your copy of our new free guide called Frequently Asked Questions about Required Minimum Distributions. RMDs are a core element to your retirement strategy, and this guide can help educate you on the rules related to them. That number again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing and Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about your new guide, Todd, demystifying the top 7 estate planning trusts. If there are younger families out there, should they consider having a trust in place, and what type?
Most people don't think about it when you're young, but if you're a young family, meaning you've got minor children, you might not have a ton of assets yet, but you want to make sure that what you do have is protected for your children. You could probably use a revocable trust. I don't think you need an irrevocable trust, but a revocable trust. You put your assets in. Again, they're going to avoid probate. Again, it may or may not be a big estate tax issue at the moment, but whatever you have, your children can't own, right? They are minors. So you don't necessarily want to leave your assets to a guardian and have the guardian deal with everything when you can design a trust to hold the assets and ensure how and when and where and why they get these assets. Just pick the right trustee, put the language you need in the trust to control it for those children, and the trust will accomplish that task. So just because you're young, folks, doesn't mean you shouldn't think about your estate planning. Sometimes it's not all about the money and the probate and the taxes, but more so about the family behind the estate plan.
The estate planning experts at Cushing and Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they have written a brand new guide called Demystifying the Top 7 Estate Planning Trusts. Call right now for your free copy, 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
It's Fed meeting day, and markets are mostly quiet as investors await whether the Fed cuts interest rates by either a quarter or half percentage point. The central bank's decision will come at 2 o'clock this afternoon, followed by a press conference from Fed Chairman Powell at 2:30. Right now, the Dow is off by 0.25%, S&P 500 is off by only 3 points, and the NASDAQ is up by 12 points. Russell 2000 is flat. 10-year Treasury yield is up by 5 basis points at 3.69%, and crude oil is off by about 0.5%, trading just below $71 a barrel. Shares in United States Steel are up 3.5% after Reuters reported the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. granted a request to push back a review of Nippon Steel's bid for U.S. Steel until after the election. Meanwhile, General Mills reported ahead of the open this morning, where the packaged foods company profit dropped 14% for the quarter on lighter margins due to higher input costs. That stock is up by 0.75%. Elsewhere, Alphabet is celebrating an antitrust win this morning after the European Union's second highest court overturned a near $1.7 billion fine against Google. Antitrust officials had imposed the fine on the search giant for restricting how some websites could display ads sold by its rivals. Alphabet shares are flat, and shares in Intuitive Machines jumping by 61% after the space exploration company was awarded a near $5 billion contract from NASA to provide communication and navigation services. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
This is Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. If you have an existing estate plan or are in the market for one, Todd Lutsky is here to answer your questions and help you plan for later life. Ask Todd is presented by Cushing and Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 35 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Visit CushingDolan.com. Now, here's Todd Lutsky.
And we are now joined by the one and only Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing and Dolan. The segment is Ask Todd, and it's called that because you get to ask Todd your questions. We've got the phone lines open for you at 205-2263. Last week, I believe we had one, maybe two people that we didn't get to. So if you happen to be one of those people, call 888-205-2263. Get in line right at the beginning to make sure that we get to you. If you don't happen to be one of those people and you're saying, gee, I've got a question for Todd, well, again, 888-205-2263. That is the number to call to ask Todd your estate planning questions live on air. One more time, that number is 888-205-2263. And we, again, usually only have time for 2 or 3 of these, so get calling early if you want to make sure that we get to you. Mr. Lutsky, how are you today?
I am never better. How are you?
I'm okay. I had a bit of a science experiment that I was trying yesterday.
Yeah, you're into science?
I was trying to, so I was taking snails out of their shell to see if it would make them go faster because they lose that extra weight.
Yeah.
And it turns out it just makes them more sluggish.
Well, I get that.
So kind of a downer there. Todd, I want to talk about irrevocable trust today.
Yeah.
How many different kinds of irrevocable trusts are there? Because I hear people talk about them, and I know there are more than one. I know there's more than 2 even, but like, how many different kinds of irrevocable trusts exist out in the wild there?
So, obviously, I don't have a definitive number
Sure.
for you, but we can certainly talk about a few of them that are at least commonly used. We talk a lot about the Medicaid irrevocable trust, so maybe I won't spend a ton of time on that one. But there's also trusts that are designed to hold life insurance, like an irrevocable life insurance trust, and those actually come in 2 flavors, the first to die variety and the second to die variety. And what I mean by that is that the life insurance that you're putting in these irrevocable trusts are either on the life of an individual or on the lives of 2 individuals, which would be second to die.
What would be the use cases for each of those?
So in those cases, you're thinking, if I have a life insurance policy and it's causing my estate to be taxable. So this isn't for everybody. Right? Think about the size of your estate and whether or not it's causing a significant estate tax impact by having it. Example, I'm worth $4 million. Oh, but I forgot about my $2 million term life insurance policy that I have. Now I'm suddenly worth $6 million. Well, from a Massachusetts standpoint, now I have $2 million subject to estate tax because I can only shelter $4 million with basic estate planning for a married couple. All right, well, that might be a reason to do it. Or, more importantly, look federally, right? If your life insurance is causing you a federal estate tax, now you're looking at 40% hit on the life insurance, on the face value of life insurance. That's a big number. So I oftentimes say, look, why don't we set up a trust that can become the owner and the beneficiary of my policy? If I do that, now it's already income tax free, but you're converting it to become estate tax free by making it owned by this irrevocable trust. And that brings me to one of the differences between the Medicaid trust and this irrevocable life insurance trust. Clearly, control is a big difference. You have a lot less control over a life insurance trust than you do over a Medicaid trust. But once you put it in there, if it now, when you die, that face value, that money flows in there, estate tax free. That can be very, very helpful in your estate. So, and you can also add other stuff to it if you ever needed to.
Talking with Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing and Dolan. If you have a question for Todd, this is your chance to ask. Studio lines are open at 888-205-2263. We do still have a little bit of room. So if you've got a question for Todd, make sure you call so that you can ask him. Again, that number is 888-205-2263. We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, it's going to be right to your questions with Todd. That number again is 888-205-2263. Your questions when we return.
Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky every Wednesday at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Summer is coming to an end, so it's time to take out your planner and book a spectacular vacation in the U.S. Virgin Islands, America's Caribbean paradise. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are 3 of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity is at an all-time high. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. If you act fast, you can still celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy the St. Croix Crucian Festival from December 26th through January 4th. Enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. Fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands on your trip to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com.
Last year, we introduced you to Mark Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I joined the Marine Corps when I was 18 and served proudly from 1981 to 1984. As CEO of Veterans Development Corporation, my goal is to give back to the veteran community, many of whom are employees of this company. This is one of the reasons I am so excited to be partnering with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts on this year's DAV 5K Boston. The DAV works tirelessly to support many of our disabled veterans and provide them access to critical services that help them live comfortably every day. I hope to be part of many more success stories of our vets being able to achieve their goals and dreams when their service ends.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Cushing and Dolan are experts in elder life planning and taxation. They know that every family is unique and that every estate plan must be different. Early planning is crucial if you want a stress-free retirement, and trusts are oftentimes the document of choice to help protect your assets. But with so many kinds of trusts, you need to learn about which one is right for your plan. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are most common, but there are several differences, as well as numerous tax implications with each. If you're ready to start your planning or need to refresh an existing plan, call Cushing and Dolan and ask for their new guide called Demystifying the Top 7 Estate Planning Trusts. Learn how to protect your assets and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. Call 866-848-5699 right now and ask for your guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
You're listening to Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Talking with Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing and Dolan. Still have one more spot available if you've got a question for him at 888-205-2263. That number again is 888-205-2263. But let's go to our first caller, Norman in Portland. Norman, what is your question for Todd Lutsky?
I was wondering about the irrevocable trust. And it often gets mentioned that it's a Medicaid kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But my income is such that here in Maine, it's Portland, Maine, I have more income than I'll never qualify for Medicaid, I don't think. And I was wondering, is there another reason besides the Medicaid to have an irrevocable?
Well, first of all, there's many kinds of irrevocable trusts. So you're right. It sounds like, you've run the numbers and perhaps a Medicaid irrevocable trust isn't right for you. But depending on the size of your estate, you could get into these other irrevocable trusts, whether it be like a life insurance trust that we talked about during the beginning of the segment, and how that can be designed to shelter assets from estate tax purposes. If you need to set up a gifting type irrevocable trust, you can do that as well. Again, designed to get assets out of your estate for estate tax purposes. But not knowing how much you're worth, those kinds of trusts might not be needed either. But you make a really good point for everybody else listening. And I've done this for clients too. They'll come in and they'll say, geez, I really want to protect my assets from the cost of nursing home care. And then I look and I see, either a combination of their investment income plus Social Security plus pension. And then they tell me they got a rental property generating rental income. And then, I look at all this income and I say, wow, you're really self-insured. And if you're self-insured, then maybe you don't need the Medicaid irrevocable trust. And again, they're not for everybody. And so sounds, Norman, like in your case, you're saying, look, I've got so much income coming in that even if I was to shelter all of my assets from the nursing home, I would be denied because I have way too much income. I totally agree. Not knowing your numbers, it can happen, folks. And that's part of the analysis that needs to be done. Then you say, you know what? I don't need the IRREV. Maybe I'll just set up a revocable trust estate plan, take care of the probate, the estate taxes, the bloodline planning. Or if I need more than that because my value of my estate is very large, well, then I can do the revocable trust coupled with some kind of a gifting trust. So great question, Norman, and I hope that helps for you. Please apply it to your situation. Excuse me. But folks, on that line, we just talked about potentially two different kinds of trusts: revocable, irrevocable, gifting, and irrevocable Medicaid trusts. Folks, there's many kinds of irrevocable trusts, many kinds of trusts in general. Call and get the guide this month. It's regarding demystifying the top 7 trusts for estate planning purposes. This guide will help you figure out which trust is right for you. So if you've never done your estate planning, this will help you figure out which way is right for you, which one might be right for you. It also deals with nominee realty trust. Please be wary of those. And maybe special needs trust if you have kids that maybe have a special needs situation. 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com. You can download the guide there. Again, top 7 estate planning trusts, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com.
Todd, I've got another caller for you here. Let's go to Eric in South Hadley. Eric, what is your question for Todd Lutsky?
Hi, Todd. My father's in his mid-80s, and his wife's in poor health, and he has some extra cash on hand between $5,000 and $10,000 that he wanted me to put into a safe deposit box. They say at the bank that you're not supposed to put cash in there. And I'm just wondering what advice I could give him to keep that from, say, the nursing home look back if he ends up in one. He does have a will, but his wife has a previous marriage, and the things are going to be split, divided between her children and my children, and his children. So he's looking for an option, wants to give me cash as a gift. He also wants me to divide it up among my siblings, and I think he's afraid somehow that they're going to take a look at that and saying he has cash that's unreported.
So let me. You said an awful lot really fast. So can I just slow you down a little bit? It's basically you've got your dad, who's now. You said he's got a second wife, or is he not married at the moment?
No, he is married. It is his second marriage. Yes.
And his health is such that you think he's going to actually head into a nursing home?
Actually, he's in good health.
Oh, okay.
I think he's fearful of that. He has a plan for nursing home care already. He already has, insurance for that. So
okay.
He's all set on his end of that, but he's afraid that there's some kind of a look-back period. He doesn't want the cash to be anything that's on the book.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. So he should then make sure his estate, if he's got good health, make sure his estate plan is in order. If it's the kind that needs protection from the nursing home, set it up. He's got a second marriage, right? So you might want to make sure that these assets are protected not only for his current spouse, but also in a way that they'll be left for his kids on his side of the family if that's what he and they want. So maybe protecting it is important, even if it's not an IRREV. Even a revocable trust, if he's got enough long-term care insurance or he's got a nursing home plan in place, as you said, even a revocable trust might be in order to just make sure you've got good estate planning in place. But to your question specifically, if he starts giving you money, which he's allowed to do, it will create a 5-year waiting period for Medicaid eligibility purposes. No way to hide it. It's going to come out of the account. It's going to be deposited in your account. They're going to see it coming out of his account because they're going to look back 5 years when and if he ever applies for Medicaid, although you said that doesn't seem to be the issue. But I hope that at least addresses your concern.
Todd, I've got one more caller for you here. Let's go to David in Sandwich. David, we only have a couple minutes here, but what's your question for Todd Lutsky?
Hi, Todd. My mother has a Medicaid irrevocable grantor trust. I'm the trustee. 3 of my siblings are beneficiaries. My mother's asked me to give them money on occasion. Are there any tax implications? Do they have to file anything with the IRS?
Are you given the money from the trust, or is your mom given the money from her personal account?
From the trust.
So if it's a grantor trust, so it's like your mom is giving the gift. So one, the recipient, this is so confusing for a lot of people, and it almost is counterintuitive. The individuals who receive the money have no issue. It is not income taxable to them ever, and it's not gift taxable to them because they're the recipients. It's the giver. I know no good deed goes unpunished, right? It's the giver that has to pay the tax. So if the amount comes out of the trust from that trust is larger than $18,000 per year per person, then they need to file a gift tax return. Doesn't mean they're going to pay anything, but it means that they are going to have to file a gift tax return and eat into their a $13.6 million once-in-a-lifetime exemption. So they won't pay any, but they got to file. So really interesting that the giver is the one that has to pay it. And last comment, money coming out of the trust, probably the way to go, because if it comes out of the Medicaid trust, it will not create a new 5-year waiting period for mom. But if she gave it away out of her personal account, it would create that 5-year waiting period.
Todd Lutsky, thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
This has been Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky has been presented by Cushing and Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 30 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Call 800-393-4001 or visit CushingDolan.com. The views expressed in this segment are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Armstrong Advisory does not provide any legal or tax advice. Please consult with your legal or tax advisor on such matters. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Cushing and Dolan are experts in elder life planning and taxation. They know that every family is unique and that every estate plan must be different. Early planning is crucial if you want a stress-free retirement, and trusts are oftentimes the document of choice to help protect your assets. But with so many kinds of trusts, you need to learn about which one is right for your plan. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are most common, but there are several differences, as well as numerous tax implications with each. If you're ready to start your planning or need to refresh an existing plan, call Cushing and Dolan and ask for their new guide called Demystifying the Top 7 Estate Planning Trusts. Learn how to protect your assets and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. Call 866-848-5699 right now and ask for your guide today. That's 866-848-5699 or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Still more to get to as we head towards the second hour of the Financial Exchange. A little bit more Fed talk. But also some chatter about Amazon's move to force all office employees back to the office 5 days a week beginning in January. Talk a little bit more on the labor market as well. And then, got to get to this piece from the Wall Street Journal. A U.S. national debt crisis is coming on with a headline like that. You know it has to be a great piece. So we'll cover that in the second hour as well. And as always, we'll have Stack Roulette just to make sure we can get through all the stuff we want to. Whole lot more coming in hour 2 of the Financial Exchange.
Despite overwhelming support from Democrats and Republicans, time is running out for Congress to pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, which will keep AM radio in cars. Text AM to 52886 and ask Congress to bring this bill to a vote now. AM radio is too important to let this moment pass us by.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Summer is coming to an end, so it's time to take out your planner and book a spectacular vacation in the U.S. Virgin Islands, America's Caribbean paradise. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are 3 of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity is at an all-time high. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. If you act fast, you can still celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy the St. Croix Crucian Festival from December 26th through January 4th. Enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free, because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. Fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands on your trip to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Every single day, more than 2,000 U.S. companies face a cyber threat or attack. The Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park chose Centripetal as their official cyber network security partner to ensure the protection of their network and ballpark. Intelligence is the answer to protecting your network, and Centripetal is the global leader of intelligence-powered cybersecurity. The choice is yours. Are you going to be another one of those attacked companies? Or are you ready to experience a radical new cybersecurity solution? Find out why the Red Sox chose Centripetal at www.centripetal.ai. Trusts are essential documents that can help protect your assets from the nursing home. Call Cushing and Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their free guide called Demystifying the Top 7 Estate Planning Trusts. Let them help determine which is right for you. That's 866-848-5699 or request the guide online by visiting their website at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled Frequently Asked Questions About RMDs. Mike, one of the places where there's been a huge change in the last few years is with regards to inherited IRAs and whether individuals are required to take money out of them on an annual basis. What is the latest guidance from the IRS?
Well, the latest guidance is that it still depends. It depends on so much and so many complicating factors. Were you married at the time that you passed away? What's the age difference between you and the person who passed away? Are you older or younger? When did the person pass away? I could go on at length here, Chuck, but there are a lot of complicating factors. But generally speaking, yes, you are going to be subject to a required minimum distribution in most cases when you inherit a retirement.
And for someone who is inheriting a retirement account from someone other than a spouse, there also is this 10-year period with which you must exhaust the account completely, so you're going to have to end up having all of that come out as taxable income, even if your RMDs don't satisfy that 10-year requirement.
Yeah, they really like to complicate this, and so you've got two competing formulas in there at all times about what you have to do with a retirement account that's inherited. Really, really complicated stuff, Joe.
It's a really complex issue. If you like to learn more about this topic, the guide again is titled Frequently Asked Questions About RMDs, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. That guide again is titled Frequently Asked Questions About RMDs, and the phone number is 800-393-4001. The
proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it, and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
Discover the fish and farm markets at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hughes. This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who've served our country and join WBZ for the annual DAV 5K, a run or walk to support disabled vets here in Massachusetts with housing, transportation, and other critical support. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Let's thank all who have sacrificed for our freedom and help our heroes on their road to recovery. Visit DAV5K.Boston to register or donate today.
The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help you. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing and Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org, CancerSupportMass.org.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti.
Chuck, Mark, and Tucker with you as we kick off the second hour of the Financial Exchange. And as one would expect, it is very boring heading into the Fed announcement this afternoon. At the moment, the S&P 500 is up 1 point. The Dow is off 73 points. The NASDAQ is up 34. So nothing really doing there. We've got bonds moving up just a little bit in terms of yields. 10-year Treasury up 4.7 basis points to 3.689%. So you got a little bit of a sell-off in yields happening. You've got oil today. Let's see, down 18 cents a barrel on West Texas Intermediate to 71.01. You've got gold up $5.80 an ounce to $25.98 and 20 cents. And the AAA national average for gas prices kicking up just a touch, about 1.2 cents up to 3.21 and 5 tenths of a cent. And that is, again, 1.2 cents higher than yesterday, but still about 30 cents below where we were in the middle of the summer, around $3.50 a gallon. So that's what's going on with major markets today. Obviously, all eyes are just focused on the Fed and their 2 p.m. announcement. Ray Dalio, who does Dalio still? He doesn't still run Bridgewater, does he?
No.
What does he do now?
I assume he still owns a big chunk of it, if not, well, not all of it, but a big chunk of it. It's otherwise employee-owned, and he writes manifestos, pontificates, shares his wisdom.
You know, Dalio...
I'm laughing because half the time it makes sense, half the time it's absolutely flaky.
Here's the thing about Dalio. When I first started in this business, I read a lot of the stuff that he had written, and I was like, oh, like this guy's like so smart. Like this is like he's really got it together. And I'm not saying that he's dumb, because he's not. Anytime that you have the kind of returns that he's had and the performance he's had, and make the amount of money that he's had in business, like you're not dumb. So I'm not trying to say that, but especially like as I've kind of tried to sort out, hey, how did they do what they did? Bridgewater, if you're not familiar with them, they're a hedge fund that posted just spectacular returns and consistent returns for much of the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s. And it really seems to me that the whole big thing that they did was they said, hey, interest rates are high in the early 80s. We can add some leverage to, the debt that we're buying, and we'll partner, we basically see this whole emerging markets thing taking off over the next 20, 30 years. Dalio's been an outspoken proponent of the Chinese economy, and it was kind of one big long trade for like 30 years or so that just worked in their favor more than anything else, it seems.
Yeah, this type of thing is valuable for pension fund investors, for example, who put their capital to work for very long periods. In theory, a pension fund or an endowment, which is what colleges fund their operations with, or a foundation, which is what nonprofits use.
Yeah.
Their bread and butter, Bridgewater's, was selling to pension funds.
Sure.
So big institutional, they call those institutional investors. Your 401k is also an institutional investor. So again, pensions, 401ks, endowments, foundations, that's where Bridgewater made a living for many decades and still does. This type of thing that they do, we say hedge funds, very broad term, so broad as to be useless. It's like saying people. Well, what do you mean? Who are you talking about? They offer what they call uncorrelated returns because they don't just own stocks. They provide pension funds and other institutional investors with diversification. So if you're wondering, why have I never heard of Bridgewater? Why are these guys even talking about them? It's because they may not be a household name, but they manage a whole lot of household assets, particularly if you're, say, a public sector or a multi-employer that is a union pension fund beneficiary. So that's where they're very well known, just for context.
Yeah. And Dalio, again, he goes out and he gives interviews, here and there from time to time. And just a couple quotes that he has in terms of what's going on in the U.S. economy and what the Fed's doing right now. He says, first, that what the Fed does this week doesn't make a difference for the longer term because policymakers are going to have to keep real interest rates low in order to try to service the U.S. deficit. So that's, one thing that he had to say. Other things that I found notable here, talking about, the potential for great power conflicts, specifically between the U.S. and China, and how that's something that could really shape the world over the next decade in a way that we haven't had to worry about in quite a while. I mean, 30 years or so you're talking about. And then also, talking about the shifts that we're seeing in technology here and how the potential productivity improvements there are meaningful as well. But again, there's all kind of like broad things that he's talking about. He doesn't really give a ton of specifics necessarily.
It's interesting. We talk a lot about economic growth quarter to quarter, consumption, investment, government spending, net exports. Those are the accounting components of GDP. Consumption, investment. I said it fast, so I'll say it again. Consumption, investment, consumption, which is spending, investment, which is spending by businesses on the obvious stuff, government spending, and net exports. Those are, in an accounting sense, what drives GDP. But in the long run, we actually know what drives GDP. A guy who died last year, Robert Solow, gave economists the Solow growth model. I don't mean to get too much into the weeds here, but we're on the
Hans'
subject.
dad?
It's Hans. S-O-L-O-W.
Oh, okay.
Bob Solow taught here at MIT, taught here in Massachusetts. What it really comes down to, there was no economic growth for hundreds of years. Industrial Revolution, all of a sudden per capita growth explodes. What causes it? It's not capital per worker. It's not labor. It's not capital. Those things are important. The main engine of economic growth is productivity, is technology.
Sure.
So Dalio talks about, this is where he gets a little flaky to me, where if you just open any macroeconomics, which is the fancy way of saying big picture economics textbook, Solow growth model is in the first or second chapter because it explains, you don't have to talk about wars, you don't have to talk about debt. Those are all short-term factors. They too shall pass. What really matters is investing in institutions and education to allow people to become more productive. And if we're not doing that, we're going to condemn future generations to lower rates, if not absolute levels of, in terms of standard of living, but lower rates of growth than we've enjoyed. We know the secret. We just don't know what's in the secret sauce because technology is sort of vague. But it's what allows us to grow on a per capita basis.
It is, and I also think this is why the piece closes with typical crap of Dalio concludes that surprises that we may see are more likely on the downside than the upside.
Okay.
What does that even mean?
I think I know what he means, but go ahead.
Well, I know.
I know you know what he means.
He's trying to say there's more places that things can go wrong than things can go right, and that kind of goes against all of human history, quite honestly. Human history is the story of humans figuring out how to make things go right after they go wrong. We keep encountering new problems, and we go and we figure out how to solve them. That's what humans do.
Yeah, as evidenced by the fact that we're here talking to you via electromagnetic waves.
Right, we're talking
radio,
to you through
right? Isn't that?
We're talking to you through freaking light waves, man. You know? Come on. And you're saying there's more surprises are more on the downside than the upside? I don't know. I mean, I look at some of the potential for where we might be and some of the problems that we need to solve, and we're pretty good at figuring out how to do these things. And it's not to say that it's always easy or not, but
you know what?
I don't know. The 20th century, just as an example, if you just look at the downside surprises, it was a huge pile of suck. It was a huge pile of suck.
Not for America, but yeah, for much of the rest of the world.
Even for America, it wasn't very good. You talk about
Really?
what we actually went through.
Yeah, but we got off easy compared to Western Europe. That was what I'm saying.
I'm going to give my speech, Mark, because I've done this
Go ahead,
one
and
before.
I'm gonna butt in, but go ahead.
Here's what happened in the United States in the 20th century. Well, things started off badly with a couple of different banking panics. Then we went to World War I. That was pretty bad. We lost a whole lot of really good young men there.
But we became I have to, if you don't mind,
let me finish first, and then you can do this.
Okay, fine.
Then we said, oh, hey, let's come back and let's just spend all the money that we can because, hey, we were a big lender to European nations in World War I. Now we got all this money. Okay, we got the excesses of the 20s. Oh, great. Market crashes. We got a Great Depression. We can't get out of it for 12 years. Then World War II happens. That's pretty bad. What happens after that? Oh, look, a whole bunch of inflation and unemployment rising at the start of the 50s. Then you got the Korean War. Then you got one president being assassinated. You got one president who is almost impeached and has to leave office. You got Vietnam going on during this. Then you get to the 70s. You got inflation happening. You got, all kinds of interest rates and prices rising. Everything's falling apart. It's just an absolute mess. You finally get to the 1980s and you're like, great, we got, VHS. This is wonderful. Oh, here's Gulf War I happening. We got a recession in 1990 before that. Then you get to the dot-com bubble. This seems great. Nope, it's not. You got 3 years washed out. September 11th, Gulf War II, Afghanistan. Then you get the financial crisis. The last 100 years, and I didn't even touch on some of the smaller stuff. Okay. It has been brutal. And here's the point that I made.
Brutal? Oh God. Yeah. Come on, Chuck. Look.
Mark, I'm not done. You need to let me finish the point.
Go ahead.
The point is, even with all this crap that happened, economic growth was absolutely massive. Standards of living got exponentially better. There is more wealth and stability and basically anything, there is more capacity for doing anything right now than at any point in human history. And if you had to pin me down on a time when you would rather have a child in human history, it's right now because there's so much less to worry about than we ever have had to in human history. So my point is, despite all of the crap that does happen, the downside surprises, humanity consistently surprises to the upside. Is that the point that you were going to make before?
I was going to say the 20th century was a century of economic miracles for the United States because we were the only industrial.
Not just for the
we
U.S.,
became
though.
an economic hegemon.
It's not just for the U.S. That's the thing. You look at standards of living worldwide.
But mainly driven by U.S. growth, I would say, as we.
Sure.
You could take the Marshall Plan as an example, which was self-serving, but at the same time brilliant and far-sighted. So I view the 20th century as a mixed one for humanity as a whole. But one of largely one economic miracle after another in the United States, even right through the Great Depression. I think it can probably get, I know this wasn't the point of this segment, but it could probably be a lot worse, whether you are looking at standard of living as measured by life expectancy or per capita GDP or certainly economic prowess. It was a miracle century for the United States in many ways. I know that's not inconsistent with what you were saying.
I guess I see Dalio being like, oh, there's more potential for downsides. The whole 20th century was downside surprise. And yet we still figured out, okay, here's what we need to do in order to overcome it. So, I don't know, I just, when it's easy to sound smart when you're constantly negative about things, but humanity's pretty good at figuring out these problems, and I'd rather have the problems that we have right now than the ones that we had 100 years ago. It's you think about the stuff that we've solved over the last 100 years, it's some pretty big ones. And what are we going to solve over the next 100? Man, it's going to be wild. And you want to bet against that because of the potential for downside surprise? Give me a break. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll do a little bit of trivia, and then we'll talk about Amazon's return to office mandate and dig in a little bit more on that.
Tune in for Trivia, brought to you by Applebee's. Every day at 11:20 for your chance to win cool prizes. Text us at 617-362-1385 and use keyword Applebee's. Complete rules are available at financialexchangeshow.com. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hughes. This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who've served our country and join WBZ for the annual DAV 5K, a run or walk to support disabled vets here in Massachusetts with housing, transportation, and other critical support. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Let's thank all who have sacrificed for our freedom and help our heroes on their road to recovery. Visit DAV5K.Boston to register or donate today.
The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Trusts are essential documents that can help protect your assets from the nursing home. Call Cushing and Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their free guide called Demystifying the Top 7 Estate Planning Trusts. Let them help determine which is right for you. That's 866-848-5699 or request the guide online by visiting their website at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Summer is coming to an end, so it's time to take out your planner and book a spectacular vacation in the U.S. Virgin Islands, America's Caribbean paradise. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are three of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity is at an all-time high. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. If you act fast, you can still celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy the St. Croix Crucian Festival from December 26th through January 4th. Enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. Fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands on your trip to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com.
Congress is poised to pass a bill to keep AM radio in cars, but time is running out. 82 million Americans risk losing the news, sports, talk, traffic, and vital emergency information they rely on. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to pass this bill now.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
If you're approaching or have recently reached the age of 73, required minimum distributions should be a key consideration as you evaluate your retirement strategy. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. There are several factors to think about when it comes to RMDs, including the types of accounts that require RMDs, when to take your withdrawals, how your RMD is calculated, and the penalty for missing all or part of an RMD. That's what our new guide this month is all about. It's called Frequently Asked Questions About Required Minimum Distributions, and you can get your copy today by calling 800-393-4001. RMDs are a key part of your retirement strategy, so don't delay. Get your guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That number one more time, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia brought to you by Applebee's. Take your friends or family to any area Applebee's and enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m., including boneless wings, spinach and artichoke dip, and warm pretzels dipped in beer cheese. And don't forget to join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now, that's eating good in the neighborhood, void where prohibited, dine in only. Well, on this date, back in 1851, the New York Times was first published. Currently, the New York Times is the second most sold daily newspaper in the country. Trivia question today: what is the most popular daily newspaper in the country? Once again, what is the most popular daily newspaper in the country? Be the 8th person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer. You can win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt and be registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's. Be sure to include the keyword Applebee's in your text, and we'll give away that Applebee's gift card on Friday's show. 617-362-1385, and the 8th correct response will be our winner. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Tuck, when's the last time you read a physical newspaper?
Years.
Mark?
Couldn't tell you.
I'm going like 2016, 2017. In that ballpark. but it's been a while. Let's talk a little bit about Amazon. They announced, I think, was it yesterday or late Monday? I can't remember. Late Monday, that they were going to be requiring all of their office employees to return to office 5 days a week starting in January. I'm sure you guys talked about this yesterday.
Yes.
What was the consensus? What did you guys discuss about? Like, what was the... Anyone? Bueller?
Mark?
I'm asking you guys what you talked about.
Yeah, I think the take was that it was probably inevitable as the abnormally tight labor market normalized. Companies would begin to exert leverage.
That also parlayed into a discussion about congestion, pretty much.
Oh, right. It was a part of a larger conversation about commuting times.
I don't think Amazon wants these employees back.
No, they're trying to trim management, right?
I think
this is a way to get.
This is layoffs without conducting layoffs.
Oh. Well, they hinted that in the article, yeah.
That's where this is going. Like they don't care about who's actually in the office or not. They want to get rid of people, and this is a way to get people moving to be out of the organization so they don't have to be paying severance and packages.
Well, if you're a manager, I mean, I have the privilege and the fortune of working for a great company that allows me to work remotely, but I'm an individual contributor. And if I'm doing something solitary, it probably doesn't make a difference. But if I'm a manager with a staff that I should be mentoring and overseeing, so I think you're getting at the management layer that they've avowed that they want to trim. You're a manager, you've got to be in the office. How is that even an option to not be?
This isn't just managers, though.
Oh, so you think there's an ulterior motive
is firm
here?
Like they want everyone.
Oh yeah,
back.
I know, but I think that that's the pretext. But they're really getting at, hey, if you're they're trying to cut the management fat, aren't they? Trying to cut middle. I thought that's what you were getting at.
No, but I think they don't care where the cost savings come from.
Oh,
like it's sure it's more if it's a manager who decides to leave, but I think they just want cost savings.
Okay.
And the question is, who else is going to follow them? And I don't know. It's all going to depend on margins. You know, Amazon is starting to see some pressure on margins. If Microsoft starts to see something similar, if Meta starts to see something similar, okay, then maybe they follow. But this is layoffs without actually having to conduct layoffs, in my opinion. That's why I think they're doing this. I mean, I don't think they actually care about having someone back in person.
I mean, even nowadays, 5 days is aggressive to be back in the office. Especially for a company like Amazon.
It is, but it's something where, I don't think they care about having their people back. It's they want to push for a headcount reduction, and this is going to have some of that happen voluntarily. Quick break here. When we come back, we've got the trivia answer.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
We are the Debt Destroyer Network. Any debt you have, credit card, tax, student loan debt, call now for free information that helps you destroy your debt. It's great advice. Plus, when you make this free call now, we have Debt Destroyer experts ready to help. They can show you how to destroy your debt and get your life back on track. Debt problems don't have to be overwhelming. You can live stress-free and debt-free. Credit cards, medical bills, IRS tax problems, even student loan debt. Learn about free programs offered by the credit card companies, hospitals, and even the government that can help slash your debt. Call the Debt Destroyer now for free information. Call now. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. Again, that's 800-430-8804.
Discover the fish and farm market at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
Last year, we introduced you to Marc Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Marc is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I joined the Marine Corps when I was 18 and served proudly from 1981 to 1984. As CEO of Veterans Development Corporation, my goal is to give back to the veteran community, many of whom are employees of this company. This is one of the reasons I am so excited to be partnering with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts on this year's DAV 5K Boston. The DAV works tirelessly to support many of our disabled veterans and provide them access to critical services that help them live comfortably every day. I hope to be part of many more success stories of our vets being able to achieve their goals and dreams when their service ends.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing and Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today, we're talking about your new guide, Todd, Demystifying the Top 7 Estate Planning Trusts. Now, do you lose control if you transfer your assets to an irrevocable trust in order to protect them from long-term care expenses?
Well, that's great when you mention that irrevocable trust, but limit it to the kind of trust where you're protecting it from the cost of long-term care. Because as the guide says, there's 7 different kinds of trusts that we're trying to demystify. And there's also many kinds of irrevocable trusts out there, not just one type. So many people think there's just one type. But this particular type, where you're trying to protect it from the cost of long-term care expenses, the answer is no. You do not lose control over your assets. There's a whole spectrum of control with irrevocable trusts. And this one, you keep about 95% control. Like, you can live in your house, you can sell your house, you can buy another house, you can invest your money, you can manage your money, you can collect the income. Even the tax liability of these trusts are designed to be at your own rate. In other words, they are grantor trusts. You don't even pay any higher income taxes when you have this irrevocable trust. So this kind of trust, folks, you keep control and you protect your assets from the cost of long-term care.
Call right now for your free copy of Cushing and Dolan's comprehensive guide titled Demystifying the Top 7 Estate Planning Trusts. It will help you determine what type of trust is right for you and your family. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it from LegalExchangeShow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Breaking business news as it happens, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia question today was, what is the most popular daily newspaper in the country? That's the Wall Street Journal. It's the most sold daily newspaper with nearly 700,000 copies sold every day, which more than doubles the second place New York Times. Edward from Billerica, Mass. is our winner today, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt, and Edward's also registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's, which we'll give away on Friday's show. And trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m. and join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now, that's eating good in the neighborhood. Void where prohibited. Dine in only.
Mark, there's a piece in the Wall Street Journal today. It's titled, "A U.S. National Debt Crisis is Coming." And it talks about how, the debt's too high, which you and I have agreed on, and how we're not doing anything to rein in our deficits, which you and I have agreed on, and
nobody cares.
At some point it's going to become problematic, which you and I have agreed on. The problem with pieces like this are twofold, in my opinion. The first is that these pieces have literally been written like every year dating
since the
back
1980s.
to further than that. I've seen some dating back to
just in my experience. I mean,
I've seen like back to the 40s and 50s, and so it's just not something that I think is predictive of anything. And as such, okay, even if you know the exact time and date that the U.S. national debt is going to become a problem, what do you do about it from an investment and money management perspective?
I guess you count on, at some point, higher interest rates. That's the best. That's the essence of what having too much debt results in.
That's one possibility, but what if the Fed decides to do what they've done before and they say, hey, we're going to buy up we're going to start quantitative easing again in order to keep rates down, and we'll become that marginal buyer
Well,
of debt?
QE is stimulative, so that would result in inflation and also higher interest rates, all else equal.
And the Fed keeps buying more, and you get more inflation, which in turn then ends up...
why that's not a good strategy.
Well, it depends. I mean, if you look at how a lot of economies have handled high levels of debts historically, it's been more through allowing inflation to fester, because then that deflates the amount of debt in GDP terms.
Well, it's what we did after World War II. Certainly
Correct.
The only historical example that I'm aware of a big reduction in debt. It was about where it is today relative to GDP. Of course, that was invested in, winning the war. Arguably, we haven't made any such investment here. So we were set up for some pretty sweet growth in the 50s. You alluded to this in the last segment as I was interrupting you when you were pointing out that we had an economic miracle despite catastrophe after catastrophe. Because we set ourselves up for it with the investment of World War II. That's a cold way to think about the loss of nearly 500,000 Americans, but it is one outcome. So higher interest rates as a result of debt, at some point, there's no evidence of it yet. That'll make it harder it's already making it harder to meet other goals. We know whether you want to look.
Sure.
I'm not going to throw a bunch of figures at you. You can look them up. Listeners, you can look this stuff up. But we know we spent more on interest or about the same as on defense in the last fiscal year. There's no prospect that will come down. So it is going to start to crowd other stuff out. That's one form of crowding out. The other form comes when higher interest rates start to crowd out investment because government competes for savings with the private sector. Will there be a so-called tipping point when interest rates, say on the 10-year, go from 4-ish to 7-ish? Forget about whether or not part of that is just due to inflation. I don't really know. Again, the miracle that happened after World War II, the economic miracle that allowed us to grow our way effectively, some of that was inflation, but most of it was growth. We grew our way out of debt. We're not really set up for a repeat of that economic miracle. Could happen. AI could be the impetus for an economic miracle that allows us to grow our way out of debt. But you don't want to depend. A miracle should not be
putting a lot of eggs in one basket.
Your miracle should not be your baseline plan.
No, it's hope is not a strategy.
Said differently,
I think is the quote that I like to use.
But does anybody care, Chuck? Does anybody really care about this?
Here's the thing. I remember last fall when the 10-year Treasury was on its way to 5%. All of the deficit hawks were saying, "Oh, this is because there's too much supply, and this is why rates are going up." 10 years at 3.6 now.
That's right.
So if there was too much supply a year ago, why is there not too much supply now? And it's not to say that this won't become a problem at some point, but trying to build an entire framework for the economy and investing in this and that based on the U.S. deficit finally becoming a problem hasn't really been a winner for the last 80 years that we've been talking about this.
Chuck, it was I'm not correcting you. I'm just pointing out that in the early 90s, we had two, and I pointed this out yesterday, George H.W. and Bill Clinton courageously advocated spending cuts and tax increases to get the deficit. They both did. It probably cost George H.W. the election in addition to a Fed that was too slow to ease. Clinton lucked out somewhat with the productivity boom of the 90s that helped growth overcome the fiscal austerity, and he also had a cooperative partner in Alan Greenspan. But aside from that, you're right, it hasn't worked.
The issue, by the way, is the spending side. Tax revenue, for all the talk about tax increases or tax cuts or this and that, federal tax revenue dating back to the post-World War II period basically has always been between 15 and 17% of GDP with a couple outliers here and there on either side. Tax revenue generally doesn't budge very far. Net outlays, on the other hand, have gone from about 14% of GDP in the post-World War II period in 1951 up to north of 22% today. There's been one thing that's been moving in the same direction. So that again, there are two ways that you can solve this. You can cut spending a little bit, you can raise taxes a little bit, or you can do a little bit of both.
Yeah, it just occurred to me. This is our fiscal habits are like eating like you did in your teens and 20s into your 40s and 50s. You can't eat the way you used to. We all know this as we age. You're just gonna
go up.
You're gonna blimp up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to do it. You're gonna die young. You're gonna be unpleasant to look at. Similarly, we have. I know this from personal. Being told this. Similarly, we're in fiscal habits of the 60s and 70s in this country. We got our guns. Everybody learns about guns and butter when they take their first economics course or something. There's this trade-off. Yeah. We never accepted the trade-off in this country. We got a warfare state. We got a welfare state. We're running them in parallel. Europe's got a welfare state. They don't pay the bills, as Donald Trump has correctly pointed out, and others, but mainly him. They could afford the welfare state because they didn't have to provide the world with a defense umbrella like we have.
Sure.
We're going to have to start, I guess, over the next generation. And most of you, some of you listening, I'm sad to say, won't live to see it. I hope I do. But there are going to be some tough. Well, I don't know why I threw that in other than to say I'm not sure if I'll live to see it, but there are going to be Chuck's like, why did you just tell half our audience? They're going to be
You're going to die.
They're going to be going to their reward before this. I guess I'm saying, hey guys, live it up. You lived at a really, if you're in your 60s, 70s, you may not live to see a fiscal catastrophe in 30 years. I hope you do, but boy, did you live at a great time.
You just keep coming back to death, don't you?
I did. Well, you get into your 50s and you start to think about this more. You lived at a great time.
We're all going to the same place, Mark.
And so did I. The next couple generations may have to face some tough choices, retrenching from our obligations in the world, which is a prominent theme in the presidential election, as it should be, and retrenching and pulling back on some of our social safety net obligations here. There are probably some tough choices to be made, absent an economic miracle, which I'm not ruling out. Again, there's AI. But we ain't going to, the 50s and 60s, when we were the last man standing,
right?
That's not going to get
us
out of this
period.
I think that's not going to get us out of the debt problem the way it did then.
Folks, want to talk to you about two seminars that the Armstrong Advisory Group is going to be hosting this fall. The first one is at the MGM Hotel in Springfield. It's on Tuesday, October 8th, and we're going to be broadcasting from the hotel, which is directly connected to the casino. There's free parking in the MGM lot. All you do is you take the elevator down to the casino floor, and it's a short walk to the hotel right from there. The second one is going to be in at the Margaritaville Hotel and Resort in Hyannis, and that's on October 24th. And there we're going to be joined by Ed Lambert, who is the host of the WXTK Morning Show. You can join us for a live broadcast of the Financial Exchange, followed by an educational lunch with the Armstrong Advisory Group. What are we going to be talking about there? Upcoming presidential election, the economic policies that both candidates have proposed, what effect they may have on the current economic landscape, and how potential market volatility may influence your investment decisions. You can sign up for the event nearest you by visiting armstrongadvisory.com/events. Just fill out the form associated with the event that you'd like to attend. That's armstrongadvisory.com/events.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
So, yesterday, the Trump campaign floated the idea of reversing the state and local tax deduction cap, commonly known as the SALT cap. This was actually put into place during the Trump administration in 2017, which effectively caps state and local taxes that can be deducted at $10,000 per year per tax return. So it's set to basically sunset as all provisions of those tax cuts are at the end of 2025. And Trump effectively saying here, look, I want to get rid of this and have it not be a thing going forward. Your thoughts, Mark?
Well, part of me likes it because I think it would help me personally.
It'd be great for a lot of New England residents.
A lot of people within the reach of our radio waves would benefit from it. Part of me says, are one of these candidates going to start talking about ways of cutting spending, cutting the deficit, or raising, as you pointed out in the last segment? There are a couple of different ways to do it. One is raising revenue. The other is cutting spending. This exacerbates the deficit and debt problem. It it doesn't motivate any desirable so-called supply side behavior, increasing the size of the labor force, increasing the ability of businesses to do what they do and grow the economy. It seems like a sop to people adversely affected by this. Maybe he's making a play for the aggrieved Long Island crowd that he's been courting because they're affected by the cap.
Sure.
I don't know. It seems like a last-minute electoral gambit, not part of a larger coherent strategy. Not that you're hearing coherent, all-encompassing economic policy from Harris either.
Yeah, I think if you look at where the SALT cap has the greatest impact, again, just looking at where it tends to be, it's a small number of states that are most heavily impacted by it. It's states with lots of high income earners and high state taxes. So you're pretty much talking New York, California, New Jersey, Illinois, Texas, and Pennsylvania. Those are the 6 states that are most heavily impacted by the SALT cap right now. That's according to an analysis by the Joint Committee for Taxation. And they studied this and said, look, before the changes in the tax law, 91% of the benefits of the SALT deduction were claimed by those with incomes above $100,000, most of whom were concentrated in those jurisdictions. So that's the bulk of them. Now, you might say, well, gee, what about states like Massachusetts and Rhode Island? Sure, you might have high-income earners there, but the populations of those states are tiny compared to Texas, California, and New York. So Texas is an example. Hey, large parts of the state are really poor. There's not a whole lot of money there, and so it's not a huge impact. But you talk about Houston, you talk about Dallas and areas like that, huge metro areas with high incomes, those are areas that have a big impact.
This is going to cost about $120 billion a year over 10 years, according to an independent analysis that Politico reported on recently, for what that is worth. I'm just wondering... why he's not going to win those states? This is not my area, but I've got to ask. You're not going to win these areas anyway.
The only state there that's actually up for grabs is Pennsylvania. Out of those top 6,
yeah,
like California's not changing.
Okay, so maybe it's a play.
Illinois is not
Pennsylvania?
changing. Texas isn't changing. Pennsylvania maybe.
Maybe it's a Pennsylvania play.
Yeah,
because otherwise there's no economic rationale. As I said, you can't argue that this is going to induce increased supply either of labor or something else that helps the economy grow. This is probably just a crass play for the marginal vote in Pennsylvania, which they're both grasping for right now. So okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, maybe that's what.
Otherwise,
this is.
what's the?
I don't know.
What does it do for him? Okay,
I don't know. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, it's time for Stack Roulette.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network. The following is an important message from SAB Solutions Incorporated, your trusted advisor for companies needing inventory management. Visit them online at sabsolutionsma.com.
I'm Colleen Sullivan with SAB Solutions. Is your warehouse inventory inaccurate? If so, then SAB Solutions can help. We are experts in inventory management and warehouse operations systems, and with our data-driven solution, we can improve your company's efficiency while saving you time and money. We can streamline the management process, making it easy for you to identify slow-moving or obsolete items while maintaining your focus on customer satisfaction and stock levels. SAB Solutions provides real-time data on inventory levels using digital technology, and we've been a trusted advisor to numerous companies for over 15 years. SAB Solutions is your one-stop shop for all your warehouse management systems. For more information and a no-cost assessment, visit us online at sabsolutionsma.com. That's sabsolutionsma.com.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
If you're approaching or have recently reached the age of 73, required minimum distributions should be a key consideration as you evaluate your retirement strategy. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. There are several factors to think about when it comes to RMDs, including the types of accounts that require RMDs, when to take your withdrawals, how your RMD is calculated, and the penalty for missing all or part of an RMD. That's what our new guide this month is all about. It's called Frequently Asked Questions About Required Minimum Distributions, and you can get your copy today by calling 800-393-4001. RMDs are a key part of your retirement strategy, so don't delay. Get your guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That number one more time, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Every single day, more than 2,000 U.S. companies face a cyber threat or attack. The Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park chose Centripetal as their official cyber network security partner to ensure the protection of their network and ballpark. Intelligence is the answer to protecting your network, and Centripetal is the global leader of intelligence-powered cybersecurity. The choice is yours. Are you going to be another one of those attacked companies? Or are you ready to experience a radical new cybersecurity solution? Find out why the Red Sox chose Centripetal at www.centripetal.ai. Trusts are essential documents that can help protect your assets from the nursing home. Call Cushing and Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their free guide called Demystifying the Top 7 Estate Planning Trusts. Let them help determine which is right for you. That's 866-848-5699 or request the guide online by visiting their website at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange has built an incredible partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts, and we can't wait to take part in this year's DAV 5K, set for Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence on Castle Island. And registration's now open. You can help our great American heroes by walking, running, or simply making a donation. Your gifts will support services such as the Veteran Advancement Program, which offers permanent and affordable housing opportunities for veterans and their dependents. Learn more at DAV5K.Boston. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
All right, there was a pretty important poll that dropped yesterday at 5:07 p.m., and this from David Montgomery from YouGov, who published the piece on this. And again, at this time of year, like, polls are kind of a big deal, and this one I think is one of the more important ones that I've seen. YouGov asked Americans their favorability rankings of different ancient empires. And dead serious on this. They spent a bunch of money doing this, which is wild to me. And I think it's just great that they did. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ancient empires that they polled Americans on.
I don't think I could have named 3.
What ancient empire do you think had the lowest favorability ranking from Americans?
Persians?
The Persians...
Because they're often cast as the bad guy vis-a-vis Rome.
The Persians were 8th out of 10 with 25% favorable, 24% unfavorable, 51% don't know.
Can I guess again?
Yes.
Just from biblical history, the Babylonians, they must hate, right? We must hate the Babylonians.
The Babylonians were not one of the empires polled.
Okay. Thanks,
John. Tucker, any guesses?
Oh, not my wheelhouse, man.
Okay. In ranking from least favorable to most favorable, the Huns came in at least favorable, only 14% in favor, 43% against. I would venture to say that there's no way that 57% of Americans even know where the Huns came from, let alone should be able to say they have a good or bad opinion on them.
I've just heard of it for the first time Right at this moment.
You must have heard of Attila.
Nope.
Attila the Hun?
Nope.
Jabba the Hutt?
Yes.
Did you know that Jabba played football?
No.
Oh, boy.
He was Jabba the Hutt hike.
Oh, God. Please.
In any case, so the Huns were worse. The Visigoths came in ninth place.
I'm done.
14% favorable, 21% unfavorable. It's probably just
An
because
empire?
They probably just
Sorry,
heard the word
I'm
Goth.
I'm not qualified to.
Then the Persian Empire.
Opine.
The Carthaginians.
An empire? Okay, I guess.
They covered.
They had a trading empire,
Yeah,
right?
they-
Around
they
them, they
covered
ring
a
the
good amount of
Mediterranean.
space.
Okay, it's anybody who was opposed to Rome is the bad guy.
Well, no.
Persians,
again,
Carthaginians.
there's all kinds of different time periods here. The Byzantines. 31% favorable, 16% unfavorable.
How could you have an? Sorry.
Then this is where this goes off the rails. The Holy Roman Empire, which is neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, 35% favorable, 28% unfavorable. The Roman Republic, I bet most people don't even know that's different from the Roman Empire, but rated 40% favorable. Ancient Sparta, 41% favorable. The Roman Empire, 49%, and ancient Athens with the highest favorability rankings at 54%. Hope you all have a great rest of the day.
Enjoy the Fed meeting.
Enjoy the Fed meeting at 2 p.m. We'll talk about that tomorrow.